Welcome to my Hebrew channel, Mila Braika, and today we're looking at Ruth 2, verses 5 and 6. I'm combining these two verses. Verse 5 is a little bit shorter. Verse 6 has got some length to it, but verse 5 and the two fit together and they fit together in reference to the Na'ar. So we start out with Na'ro, that is the young man in charge of the workers. And then we have the Nara, that is the young woman, that is the Moabite woman. And then we have Nar, and so forth. So throughout the story, throughout this portion of the narration, we have a reference to this person, what he does, and his explanation as to what's happening out there on the field. So it's a matter of introducing people and their role and their place in the society and in what's happening within our story. So let's get on to looking at the Narot. First of all, the young man, not mentioned by name, just mentioned by title or by age. There's very much a lot of counterpoint, a lot of contrast between Naro, Nar, Nara, and so we're going to look at that. So stay tuned. We're going to look at something very interesting here. And now we're in 2 verse 5, which begins right here. 2 verse 4 ends right here. This is Yehovah, and it comes from the last phrase or the last greeting we find in the previous verse, which is Yevarcha Yehovah. Okay? The Lord bless you. And so that's the blessing that the workers then give to Boaz. Now Boaz speaks again, okay? And the conversation is with Naro, with the young man. And I'll always just keep calling this a young man, even though he has other titles coming up as well. But the reason I do that is I like to use the root, contrasting it through the story. That's what the story does. So that's what I'm going to do here in translation. The young man, the young woman, the young man, and so forth. So, Vayomer, a lovely prefixed form of to speak or say. Speak, spoke up, or talked, or said something. It's a mil'el, accenting. The accent's towards the front, towards the top. So mil'el upwards, mil'ra downwards. So this is a mil'el. This one's a mil'ra here, in case you're wondering the contrast. But it's a muna used in the position of mil'ra. Okay, mil'ra is the place. The name of the accent will have its own name. So, Vayomer, and he said, Boaz said, le, towards or to Naro. This is Nar, is young man, and his young man. Okay, Naro, his young man. Who, or this is a direct object. This is it's an article. Okay, it's an article. There's a patah with a dagish in the noon. So nitzav, the one above, the one in charge of. Nitzav is the man who has authority, okay? Nitzav, the one in charge of, okay? And it's confirmed also by the use of this particular independent preposition, namely al, above. So if you're wondering what this verb is doing, or no, actually it's a title, okay? Hanitzav, the one who's in charge of, over hakotzrim, over the harvesters. The kotzrim are the ones that, as we see with kof, you have a rope that the people who make the knots in the sheaves to hold the sheaves together. The people who knot sheaves together is literally what the word kotzrim means, but we'll translate it. Harvesters works fine. So al hakotzrim, the ones who are tying knots in the fields. So hakotzrim, and then there's an Atna right here. So this is a narration that introduces direct discourse, and the direct discourse begins right here. In other words, we would put quotation marks in English up here. So Lami, to who, Hanara, the young woman, Azot, this one. Okay, who's this young woman? Lami, to who is this young woman? And sometimes the translation with who's this young woman belong to, in a sense. Now, this sense of to belong should be explained a little bit more. We'll get to that because I want to cover a little bit of material on this side here. So Boaz says to Na'aro, his young man. So you got Na'ar, Na'ar, Na'ar. Okay, well, the 3 lines, each one has its own Na'ar. This is his young man, and this is the young woman. Okay, so this is an article here in the front. You got an article in front of this one too. So the young woman. So you got Na'ar as the root, and then the Kametse as the feminine ending of this particular noun. Then, okay, the young woman, and this is the young man. Okay, so the young man of his, and the young woman, and the young man. So it's repeated numerous times. Puts all of these people on the same level, basically, close to the same age, and makes it interesting in that there's a young man there who's been talking to Nara. The Nara has asked some questions, has made a petition. We'll get to that to the next verse, and she's wants actually 5, 6, 7. We'll get into 7 where she's actually gives her petition. So Nara, this woman, very interesting to all the workers. Everybody's standing there, kind of wondering what's going on. And at this point, but there's definitely a counterpoint, definitely a contrast, or definitely connection here of the Naro and the Naar and the Hanar. Okay? So all of these sort of flow together, but each one's a different definition of that person. The young man, his young man, the young woman, and the young man. So Boaz at this point is asking a question. So when he says here, Vayomer, and he said to the young man, Lemi, to who? Now, this isn't a lamed of possession. Okay, we're just going to straight out who does this young woman belong to? Where does this young woman fit? And we shouldn't think of it as property, but think of it as social responsibility. In other words, when a girl is born into a family, the father sees to what happens with that young girl, and it's expressed as belonging. Okay, it belongs then to the father. Father watches that the girl is protected and cared for and so forth, has security and safety, and also has maybe a little bit of input as to who she would marry and so forth. But religious instruction, all those good things go into what it means to have a daughter. So to who does this woman belong? And once a woman is married, this matter of protection, security, and where she belongs, okay, where she fits. In a sense, the word belong isn't so much possession as where she fits. Where is her role? What is her station within society? So then this person who would be in charge of them, this woman, would be the husband, to watch that her life goes well, so that she's safe, that she's cared for, and so forth. This whole matter of who owns or who watches for someone else indicates also that Naomi lost all of this. When her husband Elimelech died and when her sons died, she didn't have this who actually owns Naomi. It's up in the air. The people who are supposed to do this have died, and so there's really nobody there to watch for the safety and life of Naomi. So it's an important question. An important role that has to be filled here, as to when a young woman is in her own family, the father watches for her. In the dialogues we saw in the first chapter, Naomi kept telling her daughters-in-law, return to your family, return to your father, return to your, she wanted the responsibility not to fall on her, but to fall on the Moabite families that had raised the 2 girls, Orpha and Ruth. But here Boaz is asking, who's watching out for this young woman, Hazot? And it's an important aspect of our society. Everyone who lives in, especially the women who live in our society, really should have people to watch for them. In Christian teaching, when there is a widow and nobody on the human level is there that's directly responsible, the Christian church takes the responsibility of watching for what happens to the widows. So, then 2 verse 6, we've seen Hazot, this one, reference to the Moabite woman. Incidentally, Ruth is not mentioned by name in these verses right here at the start. Simply the Moabite, and that keeps repeating itself all the way through here. Moabia, and so forth. So, but the name Ruth doesn't appear until later on. So Hazot, this one, and then here a nice siluk, sof pasuk, closes off verse 5. We begin verse 6 right here. So Ya'an, Hanar, as we said, this is the young man who's the overseer, who stands over the workers, got responsibility, has a title, has power, has authority, has ability, and he answered. We've seen this verb before because at the last two verses of the second to last verse of the first chapter, Naomi says, "Whoa, Jehovah has answered me against me," has answered against me. And there we take a little more powerful or stronger translation of this particular word. He has testified against me. Now, we're just simply talking about a dialogue here, so it's just a conversation between Boaz and his Na'ar Han-Nitzav. He's holding a conversation, and just simply answer the conversation. This is the normal, mild use of the verb. So this verb, ya'an, can be just used in a simple conversation. It doesn't have to be, one with a lot of punch to it. But it does have a sense of answering, but also giving testimony as to what's happening. Okay, so we can hold a little bit of that, what we see in the first chapter, giving testimony. Okay, yeah, so the young guy's giving some testimony as to what's happening. Vaya'an, and then so he responded, or he testified. Hanar, the young man. Hanitzav, the man in charge of, the man over. And we again have the same al on top of, above, over, hakotzrim, and authority over these workers, the harvesters who are there pulling together the sheaves and making the knots that hold it all together. So with the kof here, hakotzrim, vayomer, vayomar. This incidentally, we see a change here. Yomer is the normal way of saying this particular verb, but it's a couple things have happened. Instead of segol right here, it becomes a patah, and then we have an atna right here, and it pushes the atna to a milvra accenting, the position of the accenting, and so the atna here not only provides an accent, it also bumps it up a little bit as to converting the shvat to segol to a patah, but also moves the accenting to the milra. So it does numerous things to introduce us to the dialogue that's following here. So then he said, Na'ara. Okay, we've seen Na'ar here. Okay, Hanar, and we have Na'ara. Now it's interesting in that our author leaves the direct object off the front of this one. This is an indirect. This is undefined, but we have to translate it as defined because it's part of construct chain of Moabia. Okay, a woman. Okay, this is a woman. Moabia, a Moabite woman, a Moabite woman. Whoa, and I guess there's some reason for leaving it undefined. It's kind of a woman who's from Moab, a Moabite woman. Okay, a woman. So in other words, undefined and from here on requiring definition. Okay, so Na'ara, a woman, Moabia, Moabite woman. She is a Moabite woman. Okay. So she is a woman, Moabite woman, Ha Shabbat, that has. Now there is a an article in front of this. It's an article in front of a verb. Okay, it's certainly a very interesting construction to have that. Not that usual, but it happens. Okay, Ha Shabbat, that has returned. The verb return here is shuv. The shuv has suffered syncope, and then we have the base root of shav. She has returned. Okay, the one that has returned. Him, with. Okay, makef, connecting us with the next. It's an interesting fact that this is probably metech holding the syllable separate from the next part here. So im, with. Yeah, and they use a final mem at the end of this. Yeah, they would at the end of this syllable here. Im, with. Naomi, with Naomi. Mishde, from the fields of Moab. Okay, she has come in from the fields of Moab. We're entering a process now of identification, who she is, what relationship she has here in what's happening within our narration. But again, that contrast of Hana'ar and Na'ara, okay, and the one that came, so as I think I mentioned or suggested at the front, the fact that all of these words na'ar, young one, young man, young woman, young man, young woman, are continually mentioned in this way, it seems to put those put the young man and the young woman together. So it is a possibility that if Boaz wouldn't have done anything, maybe the na'ar and the na'ra would have fitted. It is a sort of a side digression, and this na'ar has just in 3 or 4 verses has a few things to say, and then he's not in the story anymore. But there is a suggestion. Hey, this could be a romantic competition, something connecting here. The story is very interesting in that in life, the society at least is going to define a whole lot who we are. And we'll find out in the rest of the story that it's Jehovah who has a huge factor in defining who we are, what we're going to do with our lives. And that most certainly is where this is all going. Things happen in this life. We see these things happening in our story. And we also see the Lord working out his will in our lives. And this is where this portion of our narration is going. It's going to point us toward some of the key themes of the story, namely redemption, care. We saw that with Lemi, to who does this person belong? And Boaz is asking that question, but in the end, when we ask that question ourselves, we do belong to others within our society, within our family, but first of all, we belong to Jehovah. So that's where the story is going. So God bless, God strengthen you in this day. Until the next time, stay tuned for verse 7, which I find very, very interesting because it does have some challenges of translation. So stay tuned, and we're moving through our story in a very nice way. Until the next time.